So this collage, I'm going to choose this image here from a Sunday supplement. So this is just a kind of an advert. But I've been really drawn to the closed eyes and to this kind of perspective, if you like, this plane, this flat plane of the head, kind of, this foreshortening and going off into the distance. So I'm just going to tear this out because I think I can kind of do that. Don't necessarily have to cut it on the edge. And I'm going to cut out the edge of or the whole thing just around the black border. Once I've cut it out, what I want to do is actually I'm going to glue this piece of paper onto something slightly more rigid, just some cartridge paper. Go for whatever thickness you like, but I want a slightly more rigid surface because I need it for this piece of work. So I'm just going to glue it onto this orange piece of paper here. So once I've done that, I'm just going to flatten it out, and then I'm going to cut it out. Just keeping around the shape that I want. So, kind of not being overly precise with any loose strands of hair. I just want a general shape of the hair. So follow the flow, the main body of the hair, if you like, and then cut out the shape. So, I have this kind of this form. So this is kind of going to form the basis for this collage. Now, the next image is these rather great kind of COVID policemen on horses with these COVID hats. They just made me giggle. So I'm going to glue this to the orange piece of paper. I'm going to do this first on this one because I've got slightly more details to cut into. I'm just going to make a general cut first. So I've got a smaller surface area to cut away at, and then taking a smaller pair of scissors, nail scissors, I'm just going to cut around this figure here, like so. So I've got my two elements. Now I'm going to take the head, and I'm just going to put the horse over the top because I want to make an incision into the eye, but I'm going to do it kind of at the base of the horse, so at the horse's body. So I'm just making this incision into the eye, just scuff the eye a little bit in the corner. It's because the glue isn't quite dry. You probably do need to leave it or let it dry for 20 minutes, go make a cup of tea, then come back. But I'm being impatient here, or I'm making it happen faster than it needs to. So if you're using a scalpel, again, use a cutting mat, but I'm putting as much pressure as I can so I can get that first incision, so that first cut. So it goes, all the way down. I'm sure there's a song about first cut, deepest, Cat Stevens. But anyway, so I'm just kind of bending it just to see if I can get that cut, kind of cleaning up that first mistake that I made. Which, mistakes happen, don't they, making art? That's the way it goes. Again, just going to lift it off the mat and just see what there is, and then tease this this slit out really using the scalpel. Again, just being really conscious of how I'm cutting and where I'm cutting and the direction in which I'm cutting and the speed with which I'm cutting. I'm just taking my time, trying to get this right. So once I've got the cut, I'm going to take the other element, the horse, and I'm going to feed it through. This can be quite tricky. It's a little bit like a basic weaving, I guess. But again, similarly, I'm just going to tease it into that gap. I'm not going to be brash and kind of try and wedge it in. And then once I've got it where I want it, I'm going to press down, and then I'm going to bend the element that I just put into the eye up. So, kind of folding, but don't overfold. You want it to be vertical. You don't want it to flop back on itself. So you just got to be careful with the amount you fold it. You can put in, a bit of blue tack behind if you so wish, a coin, whatever you want, to hide the fact that it's flopping forward or to secure it. This has kind of been all right this time. So now I'm going to look for a ground. I want to put this onto something. So because of the kind of the warm colours, I'm going to go for something quite cool. I'm just going to kind of work out where I want it. So I'm going to go for portrait to portrait. I'm going to go probably, I might move it to the left because I've got that edge. So there we go. So we get this kind of, this using almost the original kind of frame shape for the photograph from the advert. I now have this kind of this perspective. So I've got two visual planes going on. I've got the head, which is a flat plane, and then I've got this horse coming out of the eye, and it's quite odd, isn't it? You can kind of get your camera to get a light and then move it around. It becomes a bit like a sundial, but if you can get the shadow just to stay on the green piece of paper, you get some really beautiful effects, and it again, it feels like it's a three-dimensional object. This could be a piece of work that sits in a space, that's lit in a particular way. So it takes on more of a three-dimensional aspect if it's not photographed. So it could be a photograph of the collage, but similarly, it could be a piece of work that's lit with a harsh light in a space. So there's potential for the work to exist in two forms, and I get excited by that. So for this piece, I kind of responded to this 2p piece. So I thought, what could I do with this 2p piece? And looking through a magazine, just sifting through, I came across this great image of I don't know who it is actually, probably some celebrity. I don't really pay attention to this stuff anymore. So I'm going to get this image now. This image is really close to the spine or the gutter of the page. So what I want to do is I am going to cut it with a scalpel. I have a cutting mat underneath. Paying attention to my fingers, so cutting away from my hand that's holding, and just taking it nice and slowly down the page. This is really thin paper, so one cut, I'm not overly fussed about the bottom. I just need to make sure that it's well cut around where my model is. To cut her out, the scalpel will probably just scuff the paper and crumple the paper. So I'm actually going to use a pair of nail scissors, just because of the scale of the figure. So I'm just going to cut out the figure first using a standard pair of scissors. Just cutting down the amount that you have to hold kind of helps, but I'm sure you all know that. And then getting my nail scissors, I'm going to just cut around the figure. Just going to cut around the figure, being precise, as precise as I can, and taking out all the negative shapes. So there's a negative shape, for instance, where the arm meets the body. So I'm going to place it on a background, so I can see if there's any white paper left, or whether that's hugely visible. Now I'm going to take my 2p piece, and I'm going to just position it between the figure's legs. Now this looks like she's stepping over the 2p piece, so you're creating this kind of illusion between the physical, the real, and the photographic. I'm just going to play and test how I can get this. So the leg in front kind of pops over, so I'm going to have to bend that a little bit. I'm going to need to secure it to the 2p piece. So in comes the Pritt stick. So I'm just going to do a light dab of Pritt stick or stick glue, because there are obviously other brands available. So I'm just going to do a very light piece. I'm not using this piece of yellow paper to put the model on, so it's kind of just going to be a sacrifice piece. So if I get glue on it, I don't really care. And then just position the model or the image, and then stick the leg down. So that's our image and our object working together. What I want to do is I want to put this in a real location. I don't want to put it on a blank background like the other collages. So I want to give this kind of context in the real world. So I'm going to use the glue again, and I've just placed the coin in the glue, and then I've taken this photograph. This collage technique takes two separate images, and combines them to create this kind of quite unnerving, surreal piece of work. So the first thing we're going to do is to select two images that are roughly the same size. So I've just gone for two kind of adverts, if you like, from a Sunday supplement, and I've just started cutting out the older lady's face. Not being overly worried about the intricacies of the hair, just giving a general shape, if you like. Kind of taking what I think is necessary. Having a square edge, because you'll see why in a minute. Just going to place that there, and then get to work on the second one. Again, just tear it out. Unless the image is quite close to the edge of the page, you might want to cut it. But again, quite similar to the last time. I'm just going around and giving a general type of cut. I'm not being overly precise, and taking off the Dior bit. Kind of where I don't or can't see the information, I kind of just go with what my instinct says, really. So these two images are going to combine. So I'm going to just put the stuff on the green for now. I'm just using it as a placemat. And I'm going to just make some incisions on the Dior model's face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut across the left eyes were looking at it using a scalpel. Note that I've got a cutting mat. It's best practice to use one of these if you have a scalpel or if you're using a craft knife. So I'm just going to make an incision. So here I go. I'm going to press down quite hard down along the base from the eyebrow, across the top, making sure that I get a deep enough cut so I don't have to go over it. So I'm kind of trying to get this cut in one hit, if you like, rather than having to go back. It kind of feels okay. There might be elements of where I have to just tweak it. And I'm going to try and pop the piece of paper from the underside, just give it a jiggle, and then the cut wasn't deep enough. If you're going to do this, please watch your left hand or your right hand. So as I'm going through, my fingers look like they're underneath, but they're really not. And then I'm just going to go back through, which is what I didn't really want to do, but sometimes you have to do it. But this is a really sharp scalpel, so it kind of helps. Note that you only cut or make incisions on three sides, and you leave one side so that you can have a flap, if you like. And now I'm going to place it on top of the model, or I'm going to place it on top of the first photograph. And what you'll see is there's a slight reveal of the eye, but I want to place it upside down, so you get that quite surreal, quite kind of take two moment. So now I want to take a section out the top of this Dior model's head, where her hair is, because when I put it upside down, what I noticed was it would be quite nice, quite funny, I guess, to have the mouth coming through the hair. I've just lined up where I think the mouth is, so it's a fairly rough cut, and I'm just going to make an incision kind of along the hair, looking at my source material. So I'm almost drawing actually with the scalpel in this instance. I've not drawn it with pencil. This doesn't necessarily have to be completely precise in terms of your measurement, and you do give this kind of, that there are flaps. So again, you're not trying to take elements out. You just want to keep these flaps. So there you go. So it's almost like the lower half, or the underneath image has got a mustache, and the top image has this kind of element cut out. What I'm going to now do is just look at the kind of colour background that I want to use. So I'm going to go for a blue rather than the green. I think because of the red and the kind of colour relationships between that red top and the blue, I think it works much better. And similarly with the model with the gold, I think the green's probably just a little bit kind of too flat, and these colours really pop. These kind of warm colours pop off that cold blue. I don't think the green's cold enough. So I'm just sticking this down with Pritt Stick. Ideally, what you would do is you'd kind of put a weight on this and let it dry. But for our purposes, I'm just kind of going through what we're doing so that you get rid of some of those bubbles. But you're going to have to put glue all over. So when you're sticking this down, you just need to line it up. You do get a couple of seconds to move with Pritt Stick, but just line it up. It's kind of like wallpapering, really. And then just make sure your hands are clean, that you've got no residue glue on them, and then just start kind of pressing down as you go over, making sure that you get those bits that you've cut out pressed down so they don't flop. And then when you've done that, what you'll need to do is just cut off if you've got any excess at the bottom and the top. Don't worry about the shoulders and the sides being cut. You just want the edges of the figures to go to the edge of the page. And here we are, the piece of work is on the wall. So I'm just going to kind of, zoom in, go underneath. Then you can kind of see these visual planes. Obviously the glue's still wet. This will flatten out. And then you can kind of get a real sense of this surreal kind of double take moment, if you like. And it's a great piece or a great technique because it makes the viewer get closer to the work. So you have to get in underneath and explore the work